In his case, I think I get the idea that if you lifted his hand all off the key at once, maybe he would hold the wrist static, and so it wasn't really quiet. And so consider that everything needs to be, the whole idea of optimal coordination is having the right muscle effort at the right time for the right duration. I'm not sure who said this. I'm guessing that Mate either said it or said something like it, but it's so true. And so, making sure that you're not hanging on to excess tension even when you think, oh, I'm doing the quiet hand. And the vibrato technique at the piano, we saw what that looked like in the video on this. At the piano, on a single note, it might look like this. On a dyad, it might look like this. We'll see what it looks like in trills in a little bit as we cycle in and out. As we go to rotation, rotation is something that often is described as being like turning a doorknob. Well, I find that rather unsatisfactory because that produces a rather shallow type of motion. I think it's better to think of, if you're balanced here, and if you take your arm here and sort of rotate the radius and the ulna here up closer to the elbow, then you feel that rotation is a deeper motion. And so it's easier to, in fact, and when we use that sort of doorknob turning analogy, I find that it can be just very two-dimensional. You might have heard me refer to cycling in 3 dimensions on the vibrato technique, but let's say if I did a tremolo, I'm just doing 2 and 4 for this, and I only use rotation. So this is what I consider a very shallow motion and not integrated with 3 dimensions. I'm not cycling in and out this way. I'm just using rotation alone. But rotation is very important. So it's one of the elements that we'll use as we do these, but you can see that I'm not using mere rotation like this. This is unsupported. It doesn't produce a musical result that's actually consistently going through the sound point and producing a satisfactory tone. Okay, next exercise. So put your writing instruments down for this, and then you're also going to close your eyes. Now, come on, close your eyes, and point to the muscles that move your fingers up and down. Where are they located? Okay, and when you're ready, open your eyes. You might look around at your friends, and don't feel badly if you don't get the right answer. I didn't know what the right answer was till I was 25, and I didn't know that I had flexors and extensors. But if you look up, especially if you have no sleeves, you'll notice that these are the fingers. So for moving your fingers up and down, so you can see the activity back here. If you point it to your hand or your wrist, in the hand we do have muscles that move our hands that are out to reach intervals, but the default place for my hand is not here, holding it out. It's momentarily I might need to reach whatever that is, no matter what my hand size is. So we have adductor and abductor muscles in the hand. But here you have flexors that bring your hand towards a fist, and extensors that allow your fingers to come back to their state of, to extend, shall I say. But when we do something like this, so move from here, first of all, like this. And then move, actually try this, make a tight fist and make one finger move out very quickly. And then when you move from here, hopefully this feels a lot easier. What happens when you do this? Stiff, yeah, very tight, because you are stabilizing, you are trying to hold opposable muscles at the same time, these antagonistic muscles that, certainly we as primates are able to use opposable muscles simultaneously. Most of us used a hairbrush or a toothbrush or a comb in the last 24 hours, hopefully, and so and when we did that, we held that. You're using a pencil right now. You're stabilizing. But when you try to use opposable muscles and move for speed, good luck, because then you are causing. That's where repetitive injuries tend to occur, because you are continually shortening those muscles without allowing them to extend to their state of ultimate readiness. So moving your fingers from the metacarpal phalangeal joint, which is right here in your knuckles, is also essential for playing trills. Because if you're doing this, you are already, by nature, using opposable muscles, and that puts you at risk and also tends to make unevenness in tone and in rhythm. And then we'll get to shaping, grouping, and alignment adjustments shortly. I did talk a little bit about when I talked about crossing the midline of the body, that if you played this way, this would be out of alignment, this would be in alignment in this case. Okay, I'm going to play a little montage of trills. There's some in your handout. Many of the things, these are just a little, about 2.5 minutes of a series of pieces. Many are used for teaching, up to more advanced examples of Beethoven and Rachmaninoff. Just so you see a range of trills and tremolos, sometimes double tremolos. Repertoire question or concern, if you want to demonstrate it or if you'd like me to demonstrate it, I welcome you to come up, of course, as well. So keep that in mind for any of our question and answer time. So let's go to exercises for the trill. A couple of ideas that I think are helpful for thinking of the trill is to actually conceive of it as a two-note slur on a single note. Well, that would call for reviewing a two-note slur. For demonstration purposes, I will play in contrary motion so you can see either hand and what either hand might look like. I'm playing 2 octaves apart. So if I'm playing a a two-note slur, I'm lifting and dropping, I'm going through the sound point and rebounding. But in this case, now I'm transferring that weight into the next note and mostly going forward. So this, imagine if you were doing that on a single note. Well, it would be like going. So there's movement in moving forward, and that's allowed by the wrist to come slightly forward. So it's slightly higher as you move on. That way, when we move to 3 notes, it's basically a variation of that. So I'm going to, again, do these probably in contrary motion. So if I've dropped on this, but now I'm going to transfer the weight and move forward. And what are the other things I talked about? Well, the sound point, I'm staying close to the sound point. I'm maintaining a quiet hand. I don't have this happening. I'm not playing with just my fingers, right? I'm playing with an integrated motion, lifting from here in my preparation, and then coming forward as I play to release those 3. Then I would reverse it and start from the upper note, or the lower note in the left hand. And so you're just starting with 3 notes until you can go a little faster. If this starts to happen on you, if you go, and something happens here where the other fingers start to curl up or contract, slow the motion down. Sometimes this involves sort of retraining. You know, I had one of my favorite stories of that happened in Albuquerque. I was actually on the exhibit floor talking, I was showing some piece of video of my project, and a man came by who is a tenured professor. He was associate then. And he looked at the thing about the vibrato technique, and there was a lesson going on, Ballet d'Obermann, Liszt, and he said, oh, you know, he's really fascinated. He goes, that's brilliant. And I said, well, thanks. Yeah, it's really important for playing tremolos, trills, and octaves. He goes, I came up with trills was the last thing. He said, oh, that's interesting because I don't really have a trill. And I see right there, he's a professor. He's a tenured professor. And I said, really, what do you mean? He said, well, I just kind of do a shake. I just kind of shake. It was kind of like the one I showed at the beginning here. And I said, what do you mean? So we went over to a piano, and he started to do this. There's a commercial story to this that's actually true, but I had brought a guy who was not from the music world, but where business is, we use the word greasy, is a little more greasy. And before I went over to the piano, this guy Tom, who had come with me, he said, wait a minute, what would it be worth it for you to get a trill? And the guy stopped, I don't know. And he basically did that sort of MasterCard thing. He got him to say, it would be, you know, he had to say thousands or priceless. And Tom goes away like, and so anyhow, the guy, we work over at the piano, and we start, I go through the same things I'm going over with you. And he shows me this thing. He goes, well, I just kind of go like this. I said, you're right, you have no trill. And so we started working the same way. I just had to work with the vibrato technique, and then I started to do it with each hand. And we did the 2-note slur. And in about 7 minutes, he was able to move back and forth. I said, he goes, oh, yeah, great. And Tom came in, and he said, what do I owe you for the lesson? Tom said, what did he say? I'm blowing my punchline. I haven't told this story in a long time. Sorry. He said, that will be, I know, I got it. He said, it's going to cost you $260. Because for that, we're going to throw in, you know, our TV series. So, sorry, that wasn't a very good story. Punchline, at least. But the idea was that you can make something happen very quickly and in a profound manner by doing all of these various components of this. And so if you start to add notes along the way and go, I would basically in the principle of slow, medium, fast. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and then you go the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pretty soon, again, maintaining all the keep sort of checking in. Is my hand quiet? Have I lifted and dropped? Am I working in what I call 3 dimensions? Pretty soon, you'll see how the trill emerges. So we'll see a little piece of a master class with a student who has kind of an unusual hand formation. You'll see some of his sort of front digits, the BIP joint sort of flares up, but he is actually quite an advanced pianist.
Now let's go to 7 notes. That's 9, but that's okay. Try for it. Right, if you have trouble thinking of 7, just think of 4 C's. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty good. It looked like you're just a tad fixed. It was really pretty good trill at this speed, but it seemed like the difference was you might have gone like this instead of, and then also up and down at the wrist, but very small movements. I mean, this is cycling over. The faster you go, the smaller the motions have to be. This is much better.
Note how Kyle holds both the elbow and the wrist fixed, inhibiting 3-dimensional movement. Here, Kyle keeps his arm and wrist moving freely, cultivating a continuous trill.
Go ahead, play a little bit of the 1, 3
You
trill.
notice when you keep the quiet hand that the thumb is really the only one that needs to lift off the surface of the keys and lift and drop like this because it's such a short digit. You can still gradually fall into it. You don't have to land solidly down there, but just it's more of a continuous drop. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and now finally you got 9 notes. That was 7. That was 11, but that's okay. Think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Think of going slowly forward to teach your body what that feels like. Let's do it even slower at first. And still stay loose. And cycle 4 up. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now add a little more focus to the tone. Now relax for a second. Looks like you're actually doing too much with just notes like this. Okay, now do. And this is a place that often a subtle unevenness will appear. And so that's where you can do little rhythms where you go. That really sounded quite good, even though your preparation on the last one came from above. It was still good though, so I'm content. But just note that I think it becomes easier if you lift like this, as opposed to that. That one you hear a little slap on the tone.
Okay, so yeah, I think that was clear that was back to the sort of sound point issue that if you lift from above, you're going to get a slap on the first thing, but in this case, starting with the supple wrist and then following through, you're able to do that. So I should move on more quickly to make sure we get to plenty of tremolos as well, but the basic premise here is that as we're playing this, that you can cycle in and out. I personally think that you get up to 9 notes, and that's enough notes to start cycling back and forth. So in other words, if I go, I think you're just counting the C's, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.